Secret friends, unite!
Welcome to the Secret Friends Unite podcast, episode 348. This is your guide to the geek side, and I'm your host, Todd Oxtra, joined by, well, if you're looking in your camera, someone dressed like a certain Captain United States.
Star-Spangled Captain Puerto Rico.
Charlie Carden. Welcome to the mess. This is going to be a fun episode because the video brings it all to life. Shocktober week 5, and we've added video, obviously, and we're dressed for the occasion, all to the nines. And we are joined this week by a very special guest. Joining Secret Friends Unite is Mr. Donnie Reece.
Good guess. Greetings, Cooplings. What's going on?
Oh, it's great to have you, Donnie. You are part of the PSVG network, founder, creator. Not exactly 100% sure, but you are one of the godfathers of that network. We've had your co-hosts on, and so glad to have you on finally. And you're known for your Twitter pic profile of yourself as Chucky, and you are joining us as Mr. Charles today.
That is the good, what is it, Good Guys? And he's not my buddy. He's the Good Guys, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that the name of the actual product?
Good Guys.
I don't recall how he got the name Chucky. Is that just what the kid decided to call him, or
The origins of Chucky is that there was a murderer who was delving a little bit into voodoo, and he transferred his soul as he was dying into a doll, and that murderer's name was Charles Lee Ray.
Ah, there we go. Soul transfer study. You know, it's proof that even serial killers can be studious.
Yes.
But in the
created with his name.
In the Universal kind of reboot of Child's Play that came out just a couple years ago, they actually named it Buddy. So,
gotcha.
So you were right on both accounts.
Well, yes, Aubrey Plaza fights evil. I love it.
Mm-hmm. But yes, Todd, I created PSVG 6 years ago, maybe going on 7 at this point. We've been doing it a long time. Mm-hmm.
And for the longest time, I thought it was PlayStation video games. I'm like, why are they talking about other things?
We get that so much. It's so funny. The reason that we even, long story short, when I decided that I wanted to get into podcasting, because I had listened to a podcast for a very long time, and I was always arguing with them in my car. I would always call them out on their takes that I either didn't agree with or that I just thought was wrong. And after so many years, my wife just got fed up, and she was like, why don't you just do this yourself? She's like, you obviously love to talk. You love to talk about this. I'm actually not much of a social person, but like when in my hobbies, I'm kind of in my own element. And, I used to go to the GameStop and just hang out and talk to people, especially like
a comic shop.
Like a comic shop. Yeah, exactly. And my old GameStop manager, he used to love he used to always tell me that I sold more Wii U's than Nintendo did.
And without a cut.
I loved the Wii U and just wanted to prophesize, like, and just evangelize how much I love that console to everybody that I came in contact with. So long story short is I decided to do it. And as I always kind of do everything, I just kind of bull rush my way into it. No planning, no preparation, just get in there. And I spent like an hour trying to find a domain name and could not find one. And I think a generator gave me Play Some Video Games. And I was like, I can deal with that. And here's the funny thing. I didn't even register that domain because I told a friend of mine, I was like, I'm going to create a podcast. We call it Play Some Video Games. And he was like, I like it. PSVG. And it didn't even dawn on me to like shorten it. And I was like, oh, that's way better. So the domain that we registered was psvg.blog. And we used to always tell everybody it was PSVG. We used to always say at the beginning of our show it was for Play Some Video Games. And then eventually PSVG just became more, like our thing than Play Some Video Games did. So we just kind of just leaned into it for the longest time. And then it's so funny how many people have told us like, yeah, we don't know what it stood for. We thought it was PlayStation, but then you listen to the show, it's obviously not that. And we had that happen a lot. And then just recently, it was really funny because we used to have a show for every brand. And as you manage a network, you have a lot of people, contributors, volunteers, whatever you call them, that come and go. So we've lost a lot of people over the last 2 years, and things I felt like, just for me, I was doing a lot like just multiple shows a week, trying to like keep our original output going. And then also for me, I felt like it was getting kind of stale. So we decided to cut back, and we were going to kind of bring back our roots, because we started as one show, PSVG, and then we branched out. We did Nintendo Shack and Xbox Empire, PlayStation Experience, Decade of Horror. We just kept doing more and more shows. So we decided we're going to cut back, kind of get back to roots. And when we were trying to think of what to call the new show, it's so funny that this story just makes a complete loop. I was like, let's just call it Play Some Video Games. That's what it was originally going to be called. We never ran with it, so let's call it that. So for the last 2 or 3 months with Elaine and Devin and Delvin, we've been releasing Play Some Video Games weekly, and where we just talk about all the video games. Instead of doing 8 different shows to focus on every individual topic, now we just throw them all into one show.
There you go.
Very nice. Yeah, we started the same thing. We thought with Secret Friends Unite, we have 4 shows now. We still have a combined feed, and I think Mark might even reached out on you about that. About does it make sense to have combined feeds? So we are where we are now, and might change. That's a great thing about doing it for 7 years now, and
pushing just over. Yeah, exactly.
Ooh,
so,
nice mug.
Awesome.
That's a sneak preview of what we're going to be talking about.
A little foreshadowing.
But before we move on, Donnie, very quickly, how did you become the geek you are today?
Boy, I it's so funny. I wasn't prepared for this. I honestly, I don't know. I think with most things, it just kind of like you just kind of grow into something, right? From a very young age, I love video games. I won't give you my whole backstory, but it involves mostly me coming and going in and out of like foster homes and friends' homes and stuff like that. So video games always provided me like a really big escape at the time, and I think that's why I've always ventured into like big open world adventure games, like something I can just kind of get lost into and kind of forget, like what's going on in my life at a time. It's really kind of my niche. But I always loved Nintendo stuff. And then from a very young age, I've always loved horror movies. My wife has told me for years that that's what's wrong with me. Because I used to watch Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, all the classics, all the legends. I'd watch them, and I was like 3rd or 4th grade. I think the first horror movie that I actually remember watching was Dolls from the 1980s. And I caught it at a friend. I'll never forget it. I think with horror, a lot of times horror like imprints on you. Like when you first get scared, it's something you'll never really forget. I watched Dolls at a friend's sleepover when I was maybe in kindergarten, 1st grade. It's one of my earliest memories, so I know it was really, really young. And we were at a birthday party. It was a sleepover. We all fell asleep. I woke up at like 2 a.m, not uncommon for me, even to this day, and I couldn't sleep. So I turned on the TV, and lo and behold, Dolls was on. And I sat there and watched Dolls by myself in this dark room with all these kids asleep when I was like, I don't know, 6, 7. So I loved horror movies ever since then. So I often venture and will overlap into those. But be honest with you, like my 2 favorite geek things to do are definitely video games and horror movies. I build shrines to this stuff. I grab all this stuff. I adorn my walls and my shelves with all of it. And it's something I've just always liked doing.
Good deal.
Very,
all right.
very good.
Well,
yes.
Todd, what have we got going on for this book?
So this month, 348, or this episode 348, we have Comic Book 348, Fantastic Four. This is really an iconic cover if you're a big comic book fan and just fan of just crossovers that just don't make a lot of sense.
Right.
This issue pops off the page because Art Adams did the art, who is one of my favorite comic book artists of all time. And then we've got the team that is not the team that you're knowing for. It's Ghost Rider, it's Mr. Fix-It Hulk, Spidey, and Wolverine.
I know.
Yeah.
And this was, if I'm scantily remembering the plot, it was one of those. The FF is kidnapped. I believe it was Skrull related, if I'm not mistaken. And this was right around the time you found out that Johnny Storm had married Alicia Masters, who was the Thing's girlfriend for a long time. But then they went away to the Secret Wars. He didn't come back right away. The 2 of them fell in love. That Alicia was a Skrull. So, and then she died or something. She died or she went away. So anyway, when the real Alicia came back, then she and Ben obviously reconnected or whatever it is. But at this time, they had abducted them away. And so the computer automatically dispatched, like these guys were the B team. The computer said, come to the Baxter Building or Four Freedoms Plaza, whatever it was at the time. And, we got a mission for you. They had to rescue them. And it was a bunch of, it was either trying to remember if it was either space stuff or I think it was Mole Man, because he's right there on the cover. So it was underground.
Classic Mole Man plot.
Yes, it was yes, the Underminer there, as if you were watching.
Or Hans.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, so that is that. That's a gem. That's from, I'm gonna say, 1990. Oh, it's on there very small. I'm gonna go on record as saying it's 1992.
Perfect.
So very good. I like it. So yeah, so that's fun. But what's even more fun, and speaking of 1992, our senior news correspondent, Madam Webb, was already drawing Social Security. But right now she's down at the corner of Hollywood and Vine, almost 30 years later, to give us her rumors and news. So Madam Webb, without further delay, take it away.
Now it's time for Madam Webb's rumors and news. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Madam Webb. Oh my goodness, Madam Webb. I know you're looking across the screen at Donnie and you're thinking that looks like your long lost child. But if that was true,
grandchild.
Well, I was going to say if it was true, like Donnie would then be like a 155-year-old man. So
right, exactly.
Not true. So Donnie, if a woman comes calling and asks you if you'd like to be with like a sugar mama,
absolutely. Always.
Yeah. She does tend to prey on our
strangers,
and she tends to try to arrange accidents for our female guest hosts. So just be warned.
Strangers with candy, yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
So first story this week is really interesting because it's met with a lot of trepidation. Uncharted is a Sony property since the PS3. Nathan Drake. It's essentially a fresh take on the Indiana Jones trope. An explorer looking for treasure, but they are more like thieves than they are like someone putting things in museums. Nathan Drake and then Sully, kind of his older mentor, they go on adventures, and the series is continued, one of the most successful ones, and it's just a lot of fun. It's like Indiana Jones. It's very fun. And at this point, everyone, Charlie, thought Nathan Fillion should be Nathan Drake, because that's exactly who he looks like in the video game. So like perfect casting would have been great. Unfortunately, Nathan Fillion is now turning like in his 50s. Yeah, it's a little harder to pull it off. So, but we got
the same kind of take that people had with Katie Sackhoff as being Captain Marvel. Oh, I can't believe they're going with somebody younger. Well, you're looking to grow a franchise potential. It was funny. It was a few years back when the Jack Reacher movie came out. My mom, of all people, said to me, and again, she's worked in marketing and stuff for years, said, how are they picking Tom Cruise for this? He's in his 50s or damn near. I mean, he's just, for him to launch a franchise, that's just weird. So this makes a hell of a lot more sense.
Yeah. So, we've got, the casting of Tom Holland as Nathan Drake, Mark Wahlberg as Sully, Antonio Banderas is in this movie. And as a fan of the game, some moments of the trailer looked like they came directly out of the movie. So I'm and they used Ramble On as kind of like the theme. So I thought that was kind of a good take, kind of interesting.
Right.
But Donnie, you're also a video game player. Within Uncharted, the casting, everything has been like a little trepidatious because video games don't have a lot of great history. So what was your take on the trailer?
This is one where the casting really throws me out of the illusion quite a bit. I've thought that ever since I saw stills. I watched the trailer, I think Friday. I mean, it looks okay. I can't tell you that I'm excited for it. And I love the Uncharted series quite a bit. I don't know. It's just, you can't help get over, like, you're watching Spider Kid out there, running around with his backpack on. It's just, I don't know. I can't shake it.
I think I hope we get, so Sully, Charlie's an older guy in the later movies, but he has a big old, mustache. It's kind of like that thing you got when you're like 55, you earn a mustache. Sure. Like your dad, Charlie, he used to have the mustache, but then he got rid of it.
My dad had that mustache for 22 years. He had it from the early 70s to about 1996. When he was over 50. So yeah, exactly. Or almost 50.
So I just hope we get Marky Mark with a mustache. That would just make my day. Why not? And he can put on his Boston accent and just have a good time with it. But Charlie,
do you feel like if Sully was maybe a little closer to what we'd expect or a little older, like maybe it would come off a little better? It really feels weird when you just see like, all right, that's supposed to be Drake, but who the hell's with him? And they're like, oh, it's Sully. You're like, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Not really recognizable. Yeah, in the role. Yeah, right. He's 50.
And, just looks like Nathan's friend from like school.
Yeah,
right. my school chum. For the uninitiated, I'm not a video game guy. I could care less in that regard. And there are probably a lot of people who will say, "Oh, Spider-Man's in an action movie with the Transformers guy," and they'll jump at it. So makes sense. You understand why they casted younger, because if this ends up being a big hit, they want to keep it rolling and not get into the geriatric territory of Tom Cruise. So much that I'm not a Tom Cruise fan. So I dig it. And again, it looks interesting. But again, the question for me is, when will we get some kind of sustained quality with an action-focused video game, as opposed to like, we really like the Pokemon movie, or
So
you've
never played the Uncharted games at all?
No.
Charlie's not a video gamer. He plays the Lego games.
So the thing
I
with
play the Lego
Sully in particular, it's not just that he looks young and Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg just doesn't. I don't think Sully has a personality about him. He's kind of the color of the cast, and he's kind of he's, I don't know, like swashbuckler, type of guy. He's always kind of working on the fringes and stuff, and I just don't get any of that from Mark Wahlberg at all. And that's the thing that I think that bothers me most.
Especially not if you saw Infinite, which Todd and I watched, and then I talked about it with.
Charlie, I escaped that tragedy, so I let you take a hit for the team. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
But I would say,
like how I had to see Fantastic Four back in 2015. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
So, Charlie, I would say the best way to, and I don't know, Donnie, you may be a little too young for this, but the A-Team show, Sully always reminded me of Hannibal.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't really.
That type of gravitas must,
he's like thing. He's got the mustache,
Gotcha.
Yeah, the bravado. Gotcha. Like when you see, what was the Mark Wahlberg, like the stepdad or daddy comes home or whatever.
Daddy's home.
Yeah, like you can never unsee that, and it's like even like his cool moves, like The Departed or something like that. Like he's still not that. Like I don't think I've ever seen him portray that or exude that vibe, and I think that's what kills it for me in a lot of ways, because Sully is really important.
Gotcha. Interesting. Well, time will tell, but again, this mask is just absolutely killing me. I might end up doing the second half of this show without this.
Oh no, Charlie, you're gonna give away your secret identity.
I might have to.
Captain Unmasked.
Captain Unmasked. Yeah, I might do that during the commercial pause.
We'll see. Then they'll kill you, and then they'll kill Sharon Carter, and then all your family.
To drop
I guess.
No, I don't think you will.
Oh, I don't know.
No, I don't. No, you don't think I'll do it? Oh, am I being double dog dared? Anyway, yes. Speaking of Halloween, why don't we move on to Halloween?
Yes.
Halloween again. Oh.
Yeah. So, Donnie, did you see Halloween Kills?
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we gave our review last week. Charlie and I were kind of like, it felt like such a different movie than the 2018 movie.
Absolutely.
What was your thought on it?
Yeah, I think in our Discord I called it mediocre to good. It's definitely good. It's not bad. It's worth a watch. It just doesn't move this trilogy forward much at all. There's not a whole lot, I think, in the ways of character development. It's a very good action movie. Almost feels like a Friday the 13th movie. If you're there to see Michael Myers just kill a lot of people, that brings it to you in droves. But I also thought you got to really just be along for the ride, right? Just suspend all belief. It doesn't just, I don't know. Michael Myers is always more haunting and brooding. Jason's always been more of like the action, serial killer. Chucky's got, toys, and he plays like with little kids' emotion. Freddy's in dreams. They all kind of have their own thing. And this one really seems to step outside of that, which is okay. I'm not saying that you can't do it. And it does have a lot of Halloween vibes, right? It takes place a lot in a hospital. Halloween 2 nods, like there is, like they're running through the park and stuff like that. It's just that I feel like Halloween movies are typically maybe a little smarter and a little more developed, and they kind of tell a tale. This one really isn't there's not a whole lot of storytelling actually to this middle sequel. It's just kind of like, we want to show you Michael Myers killing a lot of folks. I feel like the best way that I could surmise it is Halloween Ends could almost start directly after Halloween Kills, and you probably wouldn't miss much. Like there's not a whole lot in the way here. I feel like they, without spoiling, they kind of kill off a character in a throwaway style that you would expect to be there at the end. And I feel like that should have been more impactful, judging by her role like in the series. And outside of that, it's just kind of, it's better than middling, but maybe not much better than that.
Yeah, I forgot to take my brain out for the movie, so I had a little bit of troubles with it. But yeah,
back in the jar. But anyway, yeah, it looks like, just to kind of put a bow on this, it looks like they're going to do a little time jump and try to pad in between 4 years with our 3 surviving characters, assuming that they did survive, because what else would they do? So yeah, we still have Will Patton, we have Laurie Strode, and we have the granddaughter. So the question becomes, okay, and this is going to come out next Thanksgiving, or at least it's set next Thanksgiving, next Halloween. It says right here. Yeah, so it's a quote from a quote in here saying, tracing the fruition in the psychological aftermath of what happens 4 years in between. So will it deliver? Will it make things better? I know, based on, Todd, us with our brains in the jar.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I didn't know this was going to originally be a trilogy. I didn't know where this whole thing was going. So apparently now it's a trilogy, which might be the smartest thing. And it might be the director is trying to do a different type of movie with every movie, give it a different theme, give it a different feel. Kind of like the Halloween movies. Was it Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, which was just out of nowhere, just different. Maybe that's what they're kind of doing, just different tones, different feels to do something different. Because the first movie definitely felt like, wow, they're just really nailing it. And then the second one is definitely more over the top. And yeah, to Donnie's point, it's just like, yeah, that's a lot of Michael killing. So this one could be cool. And it's that the granddaughter is the lead in this next movie. So I guess we'll see where it goes.
I was hoping with the trilogy that it would pass off the Laurie to the granddaughter thing so we could seemingly have some sort of continuation for the series going forward, because they're never going to stop making Halloween movies. Like even after Jamie Lee Curtis stops doing it, they're going to still make it. So write it in there, make it a part of the story. Let's finally let Laurie go and let's pass the baton to somebody new.
I mean, they did that. They obviously did that with the franchise follow-up that they then disregarded to make.
Was it Halloween H2O?
That's because they did it poorly.
Yeah. No, it was.
They needed to redo it.
It was the Halloween.
The Rob Zombie one too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So many Halloweens.
All thrown in the bin. All right, moving on. Speaking of people that obviously have earned your eternal respect, Hayden Christensen will be returning to Star Wars and Disney Plus's Ahsoka series. The force is strong with this one.
I don't even know what to think about this because he's going to be in Obi-Wan, right? He's going to be in Obi-Wan, and he's also now going to be in Ahsoka.
Right, and his inclusion in Ahsoka could take on a couple. I can think of 2 ways that it can take on, because obviously with the Ahsoka, with Rosario Dawson portraying the character in live action, is set 5 years after Return of the Jedi. It's taking place in the Mandalorian timeline because she interacted with Din Djarin, in that episode. So any appearance by Hayden Christensen is going to be set during, Todd, say it with me, it's your favorite era of Star Wars, the Clone Wars time period, because that's where we met her for the first time.
As a prequel, is this going to be a flashback then?
But yeah, she was a child back then. So the latest that they could show her would be, aging her up a few years at the end of the Clone Wars final season that we saw on Disney Plus, which was exceptional. Or it's going to be him in the Darth Vader costume, which they did in Rebels. And who really cares if it's a head to toe black clad costume that it could literally be anyone. So I am with you to be challenged with how exactly this could take shape. How is it really gonna have significance? And again, Todd, you and I are already kind of really worn out on the prequels to the prequels, or the inquels, or something set between that time period that was the prequels. It's like it's been done. They started with A, they ended with Z, and it's complete. And then you moved on to the next phase. So I'm very fired up to see Rosario Dawson do her search for Grand Admiral Thrawn, and then maybe in doing that we meet a live action Ezra Bridger, and we see a conclusion of the Rebel storyline. But then this
I call those the NyQuils now, Charlie. Not the prequels, the NyQuils, because they put me to sleep. But that's perfectly fine. Yes.
Yeah, I'm struggling to see how he would be integrated.
Force Ghost, coast to coast is what I would say potentially.
Yeah, I think that would, if you're going to be if that's going to be the Obi-Wan, there you go. If that's going to be the Obi-Wan to her Luke Skywalker, that would be the way that I would see it. So he would be a Force ghost. So
Yeah.
he would just be hanging. So good catch.
Yeah, Donnie, how would you like to see Anakin Skywalker return?
I don't have a whole lot of. I'm not super into Star Wars. I've watched them all. I definitely understand the timelines and stuff. I liked Hayden Christensen when he did it. Even though some of the moments are definitely like overacted at times. But yeah, this was news, right? I was like, oh, they're gonna go there. Okay, I'm sure like the Force Ghost stuff or whatever makes sense, like a cameo or something. I'd like to see more, of his dark side or whatnot. But I don't know.
Oh my goodness. Well, we will find out about that. I would assume if this is going into production, we're probably 18 months at the inside of being, seeing this in the flesh. So we will find out. So to take us home, something that Todd and our other Founding Secret friend John had a lot of back and forth about was the good folks at Hasbro, of which Todd has an associate who will not be named, who works for Hasbro, who was part of this. Went and did their Hasbro PulseCon. Pulse is the marketing arm or the commerce website that sells a lot of kind of the run-of-the-mill Hasbro products and a lot of the exclusives as well. The three licenses that we focus on, obviously do quite a few, and there were some other ones that were featured that we didn't necessarily talk about, are G.I. Joe, which has been ramping up their new classified line for almost 2 years now. And the Star Wars, of which they've had the Star Wars Black Series line, the larger figure, since 2013, and the Marvel Legends, which is celebrating its 20th anniversary. And actually, that was one of the featured products. So just to go through very succinctly, and I was actually successful in pre-ordering a couple of these. Over on G.I. Joe, they have kind of fan favorite Croc Master. He's a dude who has a couple of different crocodiles, and it's included. The Battle Android Trooper, the Bat. They have two versions of it. You have they also diversified into kind of a subset that happened later in the run of the original figures. Tiger Force, which was the G.I. Joe, and the Python Patrol, which was the Cobra arm of it. So they decided to give us a Viper, which is the kind of the Cobra infantry. Very ugly version of the figure. I did not opt to pre-order that one. And they gave us on the G.I. Joe side Outback, who is the survival expert, who usually has a white t-shirt. This is an orange t-shirt. It's very Halloween. It's Halloween G.I. Joe. So yeah, two different versions of the Bat. One of them is painted up like the Python Patrol, as I said. We also got a very, I say, original series accurate version of Spirit Iron Knife, who is the G.I. Joe tracker sniper, Native American character. Actually, the bit was introduced by the guy from the Black Eyed Peas. He came on and it was
Taboo.
Taboo. Thank you very much. It was Taboo.
Man, know your Black Eyed Peas. I got bonus points.
And he came on and talked about his Mesoamerican heritage and how that applied back to the character, which I thought was kind of cool. We are getting a classic Storm Shadow. This is not the first
looks good.
release of the figure. He does look great. And that's about it for that. Over on the Star Wars side, and again, Todd, you and John and I were talking about how Funko is really good at getting stuff to market. Well, 6 inch to 375 action figures are not. It takes them about a year to get anything out. So that being the case, we are now getting stuff for Mandalorian Season 2. We've got Boba Fett in his pre-armor kind of Tatooine / Vandor garb with the basically looking like a Tusken Raider without the outfit. Another version of the Mandalorian, this one impacting with the spider from the Frog Lady episode. You're getting Cobb Vanth. That would be Timothy. What's his name? Timothy
Oliphant.
Timothy Oliphant. Wearing Boba Fett's armor. That's cool. I managed to get a pre-order for that one in. The Bill Burr Miggs Mayfield character, cannot find the link for that one, so I don't have that ordered yet. So, but I also grabbed the Trapper Wolf, which is the Dave Filoni character. I caught a lot of flack from John for that. They also rolled out a couple of Disney Park exclusive packs that I will never see, and I'm just going to promptly stop thinking about, even though they look cool. Over on the Marvel side, I was really relieved because almost everything presented here is a repack. So I was pretty happy about that. So repacks, even though I was super excited on the retro line, they have two West Coast Avengers figures, which is a heritage title I love back in the 80s. You've got Vision all in white, which we also kind of saw in the WandaVision series, and a classic Scarlet Witch, both are reissues. You've got Null, who is a character from that Venom series you read, Todd. I could care less. You've got repacked Cap Falk from Falcon the Winter Soldier, and then Cap from Endgame. I already have both of those. And then Todd, this is more in your territory. We have a kind of X-Men 92. Oh, excuse me. Yet another version of the Winter Soldier character from the MCU.
Yep.
And then from the X-Men 92 cartoon, we have Jubilee. And,
these are pretty good with the VHS cover, and then they've got the picture of Cyclops and Jean Grey. That's the one that you see the meme of where Wolverine's looking at the picture and sad in a bed. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and which is they managed to do that in the packaging as well, if you look at it. So lastly, as I had mentioned, 20th anniversary of the line. We are getting 2 figures from Wave 1, which came out back in, it was in 2022, so I guess next year is, and I'm sure that's what this will drop. Just kind of, and again, it's a repack because it's not the original figure. The original figures looked horrendous. It was from 20 years ago. But they did bring back the retro packaging. You've got Cap, and you've got Tony Stark in his classic 1970s, 1980s yellow and red armor.
And mustache.
And mustache. And at the bottom we have, is this Nightmare? Who the hell is this character? The one
Scourge? I'm
Shroud. I'm scrolling back, and they have some oddball. They just do not.
Oh, that thing in the bottom corner, Charlie. That's the when the X-Men was revamping in the 90s. They introduced new characters. Another character called Maggot, who these little wormy things came out of his belly, and he could attack them with them. That's a teaser for Maggot.
That's Cap. And then there's one weird character in the middle that I can't pick out that kind of looks like Quasar. It's not him.
Shroud.
So anyway, a lot of these are out there. A few have sold out. There are other ones in there, but Todd and I were talking about this in the pre-roll. If you catch these panels, it's really a lot of marketing hype, blizz blaz. Look on a reputable toy site like Toy Arc or the Fwoosh. Instantly the stuff will still be there, so for you to see. And then generally obviously Hasbro is trying to sell this themselves, but retailers like Amazon and Target will also, and Dorkside and some other regular figure websites will have them as well. So anyway, I'm always happy for new product. My figure collecting has slowed down a lot. I've gotten a hell of a lot pickier, but there's still some things that I sought to grab. So I enjoyed those.
And obviously, Donnie, sorry there was no Chucky Transformers crossover this time. So no toy coming out that Chucky transforms into. I don't know. What would Chucky transform into? A serial killer? Like a person?
Big knife.
Yeah. Yeah. Or he turned into the Bride of Chucky, and that would be very weird.
Be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So there you go.
The NECA figures that they do are pretty awesome. And I've got the Trick or Treat Studios doll behind me.
We have a few of those NECA because my wife loves horror, and she's kind of dragged me into it. But we have both versions of Pennywise, the movie, and then the television version. We have a Freddy Krueger, and then we have we have a little Chucky in the box.
Yep.
And I can't remember what the last one is, but they're great. When the cats are chasing a buggy and she jumps up there, they all go down. That's about as much play as they get.
The best type of play: cats chewing on action figures. Yes, gotta love it.
All right. Well, with that, we bring the news to the close. So I'm going to pull out my phone, bring up UberX. Hopefully that I don't get drilled down on the rates, but we're going to get ourselves over to the Geek Easy to talk about what we're geeking out about. So let's do it.
Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.
We're sitting in the Geek Easy, cover band's playing, drinks are poured, and we are getting our nerd on. So, Donnie, anything you've been watching or reading?
It's October, guys. I'm watching horror movies all month long, constantly. I've done, I think yesterday was 14 on the month so far. I'm not quite getting through my list, but I think I'll have to save some for next year. My list for next year is already overflowing, but so let's see. We've done Return of the Living Dead 1 and 2, Videodrome, Lake Placid, House of Haunted Hill with Vincent Price, Tucker and Dale versus Evil, Idle Hands, Little Shop of Horrors. And then just yesterday we did Trick or Treat. So getting through the list.
We snagged a double header last night, and one horror comedy was Beetlejuice, and then The Lost Boys, which is one of my wife's.
Of course.
Favorites. So
good ones.
Loved it. So that's awesome. So
any standouts?
I was gonna say, if you were to pick like a top 3, what would your top 3 be for this year?
For this year
that you've watched so far?
Okay, my go-to Halloween recommendation for this year is definitely The Dark and the Wicked, which you can go see on Shudder. It's fantastic. It's absolutely amazing. It's very old school horror. It's classic horror, and it's just done really, really, really well. My favorite pick from last year was Host, which you can also watch on Shudder as a Shudder original. It's kind of like Paranormal Activity, like, Skype horror, which is kind of like a new little trendy thing, but it's done really, really well. Man, I wish I had looked up my notes, because like all these movies that I've seen that I just read off that I've seen this month, like I've watched all of these multiple times. So I'm trying to think of like some newer recommendations. The new Purge, the Forever Purge, I liked a lot, because
That's how that one.
it zooms out on the Purge, which is something that I've always wanted the Purge to do, is to show me like what the Purge is doing to society, and less like this person's story of the Purge, like in their house, which I really appreciated. I like that quite a bit. And let's see here, the new Conjuring is good. Oh, Malignant is like the new James Wan horror movie. It's awful.
We have talked that one.
I thoroughly talked about that one.
I am not only, I've talked about it on 2 different podcasts.
It's terrible.
On this show, and I was with our friend Rich.
Yeah, and I got the hype into that one. I was like, Rolling Stones like redefines horror for a new generation. I was like, it does not.
It does.
Well, it may redefine it, the negative fashion. Yeah,
it's very, very, very bad. And then,
is it famous or infamous?
Right.
Infamous.
On my to-do list for the rest, at least for, I guess, for this week, is my wife's never done. So like the story of this in short is that every year I kind of curate a list of movies for me and my wife to watch together. Like it is the season. She knows I love horror. We watch the new releases as they come out, but every year during October, I always try to expose her, like, almost like give her an education as to different types of horror movies. And over the years, I've learned some of the ones that she likes, some of the ones that she doesn't like. So she doesn't like any of the gory stuff. She doesn't like any of the slasher stuff. She really likes religious horror, any sort of possession or haunting things. And she really loves like dumb 80s horror. So on the list to finish out this, if we can make it, is I want to see The Night House, which is a new one that I haven't seen yet. I'm going to see Drag Me to Hell, which is actually surprise. That's one that I've never seen as well. I own it. I've owned it for years. It's sitting on my horror shelf. I just never got around to it. We're going to do Hellraiser, which she has never seen, and she's not going to like that.
Wait, you said gore?
Then we're going to do The Stuff, which
The Stuff is a good one.
She's gonna love it, because that's like her thing. Is she really likes, like we'll have a couple drinks, pops popcorn. She really likes that dumb stuff. Like she loved Night of the Comet. We did Chopping Mall the year before. She loved Chopping Mall. She thought it was funny as could be. So I think The Stuff's right up her alley.
We did Chopping Mall a couple years ago. Well, cool. Yeah. That is awesome. We Todd, I think when we do this again next year, maybe we can focus a little bit more on the classics, because I would.
Oh, absolutely.
I would like to dissect more classics, because I think we ran into some stinkers.
Some recent stuff is not very good. Yeah, classics. Definitely.
Wait.
So Donnie, if you have like a classic maybe we haven't seen that you recommend for us, we'll reach out to you.
Okay,
absolutely. All right. Well, let me steal it back. I have been Todd. We were dabbling with AMC Plus, and I told you I didn't really feel like it's worth keeping it. But then I got a note from the good folks at Verizon, because I recently got an Apple Watch. They said, 6 months free of Apple Plus. I'm like, all right.
Apple or AMC Plus?
AMC Plus. I'm sorry. Look at that. Because I said Apple Watch, I said Apple twice. So I got distracted. So not the greatest app. It does keep erroring out, so I have to log out and go back in. But we have been watching the newest Walking Dead show, which I'm like, that has absolutely become more April's thing than it has been mine. But this show to me it's a little different. Now it's set 10 years after the fall, which if you watch, I've not been watching Fear the Walking Dead, but April has, but I've been kind of going through the motions with the original show, because she's more into it than I am. But they're both about 10 years after the fall. What I like about this show and what's engaging me is that it's not about friggin' zombies stumbling around anymore. It's about there's a new government in this portion and it takes place in the plains, I think Nebraska. There's a new government in play, and they stretch across a portion of the country, and this group of kids who has grown up since age 5 or 6, and so they've grown up since age 4, 5, 6, and now this is the only world they know. And it's funny because they lean a little too heavily on that sometimes. Like, I've never been inside a real high school. I've never drank soda out of a can. It's like, come on, guys, we get it. But it's about, something that when the original shows moved away from, we're running from zombies, and zombies is about the fact that the real enemy are the people. And so you're finding out that the main governmental military individual, played by actress Julia Ormond, is what has she got cooking? What is she's evil. She's twisted. What's the end game? Does this somehow tie in with Rick Grimes disappearing from the original show? I don't know. The original it's just a 2-season show, and apparently planned that way, and the second season just began. We're probably about halfway through the original show, or the first season, and I'm interested. I'm interested to see this group of young teens kind of figure out how to do stuff and maybe get to the bottom of weird stuff that's going on with this paramilitaristic kind of thing happening in the show. So I'm kind of down with it. Todd, I know that you're so far beyond caring about The Walking Dead at all, so I know it's out of your world.
Yeah, I tried to pulse back in, but I'm like, yeah, they're still kind of doing the same thing. Now when Rick returns, that may be an interesting checkpoint, but those are going to be standalone movies, so that's less of an effort versus here's 22 more episodes you have to watch, and maybe 3 things happens in those. So,
yeah, pretty much. So far I've enjoyed it. So
Okay.
that's that for me. And then secondly, kind of spiraling back to talking about Hasbro PulseCon, I pulled a first. And this was actually, my enabler was April, because we were looking at this together and we're like, that's pretty sweet. A HasLab, which I never thought I would do. Now, HasLab is basically it's the crowd-funded, huge product offering that Hasbro's been doing. The first one they did, and Todd and I talked about this copiously when it happened, because I wasn't a believer and Todd was, and he ended up winning the bet. First one they did was $400 or $500. And it was Jabba's sail barge to the 3 3/4 scale. And I know our friend John bought one. I know that my friend Derek bought a couple and sold at least one of them for profit. But they've done, they've done Marvel, and they've gone back and forth. So we've gotten a Sentinel. Galactus was the most recent one. They've had ones that have failed. They tried to do a Cookie Monster, and that one failed. Todd, I think you remember that. They did a Transformers that was Unicron or Unicef or whatever the hell that character was.
He makes sure all the children are taken care of by eating their planets. Yes,
exactly correct. But this was the first G.I. Joe one, and it's kind of hybridized. Because it's the 3 3/4 scale, which is, I have a small collection of those, but this was done in the more classic, the kind of the O-ring style, the figures where they have the O-ring in the center of them, and that's how they bounce around. But it's a Sky Striker, and it's amazing. To me, it was amazing, and April said, let's do it. And the price point was something that we felt a little bit more comfortable with, but it's the plane itself. It's a F-14 Tomcat, Todd, if I'm not mistaken. It's the pilot Ace. It's his Rio, who's a new character who doesn't even have a code name. It's kind of weird. And that has unlockable tiers that, it gets to a certain level. And there's a version of the character Scarlet. There's the character of Ripcord, who is bigger, the Halo Jumper, who is bigger in the comic than he was in anything else. And then the last one is you get a ground crew that comes with a little missile loader and stuff. So it's kind of fun. It comes on a cool stand. We're already trying to figure out where it'll go. But again, the window for this one is open for like 45 days. And then, so when it closes, it's usually like a year before I'll see it. So I'm probably I'm well over a year, what it feels like closer to 18 months for actually seeing this thing. So I'll keep my excitement metered.
Yeah, they also had the Rancor HasLab that came out too, and
right,
yeah, that one's a little more pricey, $350, and they showed the scale of that figure compared to the other HasLab ones, and it was smaller than expected, but less excited about that one.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think that, and if I was to look at the numbers right now, it's kind of interesting. Let's get the pulse up here. But Todd, you start talking, and as I find some numbers,
sure,
I'll jump back in. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I don't know who else has watched this, but I watched the first episode of the new Chucky series on Sci-Fi USA. It's on like everything, and then YouTube has the first 2 episodes free to watch. So I watched the first episode, and I was pretty impressed. I think this might be the biggest budget they've had for quite some time. And I think it looks the part. This is really about the Chucky doll being purchased at a garage sale by a teen who I think is in junior high, who is gay. He's also an artist, and just you see him bullied. And his father's not supportive. The mother's passed away. And you can kind of see the inevitable situation where this is going. And I really enjoyed it so far. There was only one scene that seemed a little goofy, but the rest was very well done. And it looks like they're going to tackle bullying quite a bit, which in a way that's kind of a very timely topic, especially, you know, the main character being LGBTQ. It's unique, and the characters are building up from the teenagers aspect are interesting. The focus really is on that group rather than the adults, which is which is good. And I don't know how many episodes this will be, but I really enjoyed what I saw. And I think I can watch the second episode. I have Sling right now because I'm watching sports, which includes, I believe, Sci-Fi or USA or something like that, so I can watch it there.
Okay.
I think the Sci-Fi app, you can watch the shows as well for free for a period of time.
Yeah,
well.
I still haven't dug in, and I guess because it's, you know, we stick to the apps we're pretty consistent with. So if this doesn't pop up, it's off my radar. But there's no reason I couldn't go check out an episode if you like it. If you
Well, it's
like
like I said, it's on YouTube now, so you can watch the first two on YouTube.
It's remotely possible that I might enjoy it, but it's very remote.
Yeah,
I'm loving
Donnie,
it.
did you're enjoying it? Okay,
I'm absolutely loving it. I've been following the creation of this show. You talk about, you know, geeking out for something. Like, I've been following the creation and been waiting for this for so long. The last 2 years, Don Mancini's been talking about it. A lot of love's being poured into it. The show looks great, like just visually, it's very, very eye appealing. They do a really good job of like setting a mood and a tone, and just making the screen look really, really appealing to like sit back and watch. Very entertaining. You know, it does at times feel made for TV. You know, it's a little on the nose, which I'm okay with. I think the kids are doing a really good job. It's got a ton of nods. It's like the entire Chucky universe is built into this. You know, like Jennifer Tilly's there. Brad Dourif obviously reprises his role. His daughter is in it, when she was in the last couple, you know, that came out to Netflix and streaming as well. Devon Sawa plays both dads, and which is really cool because, you know, like in terms of horror, right? Like, he's from Casper and Idle Hands and Final Destination, stuff like that, and he looks way different now. Actually, it took me a couple episodes. It took me the second episode to notice. I was like, oh wow, because we just watched Idle Hands, actually, my wife, and I was like, that's the same guy, and it turned out that it was. But the story that you're talking about in terms of the bullying and the LGBT stuff, you know, it's really close to Don Mancini. You know, he's gay, and Chucky's always kind of flirted with it. It's always had characters that were either gay or presumed gay or like could be. It's something that, you know, like some people online as leading up to it, they didn't like it. They thought it was like, you know, like trying to be trendy. But I think fans of the series will always know that there's always been passing characters or Easter eggs or things like that kind of relating to that. And obviously you've got the seed of Chucky's entire son, you know, and that whole trans storyline and all of that goes into it as well. So I'm absolutely loving it. It's way better than I expected it to be quite honest with you. I was expecting it to be like so many, like you mentioned, so many of the sci-fi series are made for movies and stuff. Like, I even like not the Walking Dead, the so Night of the Living Dead. What is their zombie thing they're doing? I tried to watch an episode of that.
Zombie World. Yeah, I don't know what is it.
I didn't get 15 minutes into it. I think it's Return of the Living Dead or something. The series,
something like that. Yeah, it's inspired by the George Romero movies, and yeah. Well, they had Zombie Nation too. Yeah, they had Zombie Nation, which was very much like goofy and like, oh, it's a ball of zombies coming down a hill. Oh my goodness!
To be honest with you, I really expected that they would maybe like pull punches like with Chucky, and they don't.
Yeah.
You know, Chucky is as foul-mouthed and brash and rude, and like the kills are as gory as they've always been.
On USA, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Todd, what else you got?
Okay, so something I've become a fan of, and I think this is maybe season 3. I don't remember. It's called The History of Horror. Eli Roth hosts this, and he does a subject every episode. So I think this is the one I watched, and I've dabbled in the other ones. This one was sequels, which was very cool. And with that, he talked about sequels that were better than expected, which I thought was a good take on it. Because, you know, there's a lot of bad sequels in horror, Charlie. We talked about, you know, trilogies and things like that. But the ones he mentioned specifically, and I like it because he brings in the directors, actors, people that are historians in horror. So they bring in like these really cool, it's like a documentary in a way, which is very entertaining. And they intersperse multiple movies, probably 5 or 6 movies they focus on. But it was interesting. Like, some of the movies they mentioned were Psycho 2. Which I'm like, okay, I thought that was a throwaway, but people were like gushing about it. I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty interesting. Gremlins 2, one of my favorites. Such a weird sequel that they thought never would have made. And Joe Dante's like, well, if I'm going to make it, I'm going to do whatever I want. That's why it's so.
And he did that great Key and P sketch where it was the
and they
pitch meeting
mentioned
for
that.
And they run through all the shit that ends up in that movie. You're like, no, and it was all there.
Yeah. Then Freddy's Nightmare. Oh no, the Dream Warriors 3, where the people had powers. Yeah, so it's just really good. There's another one about infections. There's one psychics. There's they cover a lot of different topics, which means they can incorporate a lot of different movies. But really well done. And I think you can watch all the episodes streaming. So Charlie, you could even watch it on AMC Plus. So definitely, definitely well worth it.
It's a fantastic series.
Very interesting.
I love horror documentaries. I always recommend them to folks, especially if you've got significant others or friends that aren't into horror movies. It's a great way of like getting them into wanting to watch something. We've watched that entire series, catch every episode, and my wife is always, she'll pick one or two out based off of what the commentary is saying. She'll be like, ooh, that sounds interesting. I like to watch that one. And I always say that, like, if you guys have never watched Never Sleep Again, which is like the documentary about all the Nightmare on Elm Streets, and there's like one about Friday the 13th and stuff like that. Great way of getting people getting their attention for this type of stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is like a pseudo sequel to back in the day. Bravo had the top 100 moments in horror, which was fantastic, but you cannot find it anywhere, which sucks. So
I do hate it when stuff goes out of print. Yeah. There's a great Rolling Stones documentary that came out in the late 80s that I had a VHS tape of it back in the day, but it no longer exists. Can't even get it on YouTube. And it was really, really comprehensive. It was like called it was like Stones. It was 25 by 5 because the 25th anniversary of the band. So it's from the early 60s to about 1989, which is the Steel Wheels tour, and just all the crazy tour footage and weird shit in between. And it was awesome. And I have it in my memory, but it does not exist anymore. So it really bums me out. So yeah, I feel you.
Yeah. Some things you wish to find, or maybe on the dark web, I can find it because I would love to find that again. So very cool.
Dark web it.
Yes. So that is it for the Geek Easy. Time for us to move on. Donnie, I hope you have your passport because we're ready to fly to parts unknown and visit the Thunderdome.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome!
Thank you, Tina. We're sitting in the Thunderdome where the mutants have been gathered for a topic or game to be entertained. And this week, we are wrapping up Shocktober with week 5. This was the last pick was mine. I picked a movie that I had heard many, many good things about. It's from 2007, and that movie is Trick or Treat. Essentially, I originally thought it was an anthology, but it feels a little bit different than. But it is. It's weird, like anthology, but kind of doesn't feel like an anthology. But that's probably the closest thing you can call it because it's intersecting storylines, many different bits. So, like I said, I had never seen this before. It was on HBO Max, is where I recommend everybody watch it. This includes Anna Paquin, Brian Cox, Dylan Baker, Leslie Bibb, Quinn Lord, Tamo Pennicott, Rochelle Aites, Britt McPhillip, and basically 4 interwoven stories that occur on Halloween. An everyday high school principal has a secret life as a serial killer. Ooh, spoilers. A college virgin might have just met the one guy for her. A group of teenagers pull a mean prank, and a bitter old recluse receives an uninvited guest. And for those people are not familiar with Trick or Treat, basically it's got the iconic little character, almost like the Scarecrow mask on the cover. Yeah, and Donnie, you have
Todd, what was the very first thing? What was my comment as we continue to watch this?
Yeah, Donnie is drinking out of his coffee mug that's themed with this. Right. And Charlie, you mentioned it was Canadian, and I'm like, okay.
Super duper. Well, you had the very first person I saw was actor Tamo Pennicott, who is Hilo from Battlestar Galactica, one of my favorite programs. I when I researched that dude, his grandfather was like the premier of Canada back in the 1800s or something.
The premier.
Sounds very premier. I know. Hey. Yeah, exactly. Oh boy. So, holy cow.
So Donnie, have you ever seen this movie before?
I picked this movie when you had messaged me and you'd given me a couple choices, and I picked this movie because it just so happened that this movie was already on my to watch list for this year. I've owned this movie forever. Like it felt like decades. It's so funny. I'm really glad that I picked this movie to join you guys with, because I had forgotten how much I'd really loved this movie until I sat down to rewatch it yesterday. I got this movie back in the days when my wife and I would like go to Blockbuster and just grab, 5 for $5 DVDs and stuff. I don't,
Right.
it's one of those things where I've always known about the movie. I remember liking it. Anthologies were never my favorite thing in the horror space, like Creep Show, Tales from the Crypt, and stuff like that. And you're right. This is definitely an anthology, but it's not like episodic or like what people think of when they think of something like this. This is more like, there's a recent one, if you guys ever want to go back and look, one called Southbound, which is also an anthology. It's kind of told similar like this. It's just a really good classic Halloween movie, kind of like, I know this might be a trip, but like almost like Hocus Pocus for adults. Like it just kind of, it's very much like jack-o'-lanterns, black cats, like just kind of classic Halloween stuff, trick-or-treating, just in a little more, mature adult way that's a little more entertaining. You can almost watch it. It's almost timeless. You can watch it, every year if you really wanted to, because the story is traditional, and the movie is beautiful. Like the set design and like the aesthetics that they put on the screen is really, really pretty. I think that's something that I definitely didn't remember before I rewatched it. But yeah, no, I watched it decades ago. Like I think of my wife at her parents' house, like when we were, I think, just out of high school watching. You say 2007, I graduated in 2006, so I probably caught it in like 2007, 2008, something like that. So it's really going back for me. But yeah, it's a great little movie.
It was Brian Cox executive produced this movie, so depending on how you feel about him, but the fact that you've got a big name attached to this type of movie is surprising, and probably leans into the quality, as you said. And yeah, this is kind of an under the radar cult classic for a lot of people, and I'm like, okay, gotta watch this. I think I watched the beginning of this movie years before, and I'm like the opening is fantastic because it just really opens the door, and they revisit. It's interwoven in a way it's not always set in the same,
told out of time.
timeline.
Yep.
Exactly. Which makes it more interesting because you're like, what's going on? What's happening? And I really enjoyed it. And each of the stories were kind of more of an iconic type of horror story. You had like a serial killer, you had with a twist, you had well, I don't want to give too much away because I think it's well worth watching and giving it away. And if people aren't familiar with this movie, I don't want to spoil it for them. So, but I think each of them has unique monster or scary element, which makes it entertaining and fun.
I love the premise, right? It's like this haunting and this Halloween punishment, which is not like, right, we see this with like slashers all the time, right? Like the kids that have sex, they get killed, right? Like don't go out alone. Like this movie has rules, right? Always wear a costume, make sure you hand out candy, never blow out a jack-o'-lantern, always check your candy, and like your consequences for not following like these Halloween traditions. It's just a really great premise for a Halloween movie. I love that like this one, it's got a great cast, especially at its time, right? They kind of caught a lot of people coming up, which is something that I love about the horror genre. It's usually a great launching pad or a start place for a lot of actors. You can go back through the history of horror and you can find so many actors that became huge stars that have early roots in the horror genre. But it's almost like the story and the premise is almost so good that you could retell the story, 10 times over with 10 different casts, and it's still great. It's just kind of like that good old fashioned Halloween comfort food.
Yeah. Charlie, did you watch this with April?
Yeah, we watched it just last night over, a roaring fire and a copious amount of alcoholic beverages, which helped. Yeah, I would agree that there were a lot of like twists and turns. I thought, in particular, the little, not the little girl, you had the group of kids that went to the mine. And then kind of how that followed through, where they went to the bottom and they played a trick on the one girl, the witch, with her glasses, and how she got totally freaked out and she kind of had a panic attack and became nonverbal. And then they were like, ha ha, hilarious, blah blah blah, this thing and that thing. And then the real survivors of the bus, these mutants, crawled up out of the mire, and they're cannibals because how else are they going to survive in there for, what was it, 25 years or however long it was. And she makes it back to the elevator to go up, and she's like, don't leave us. And she's standing there kind of in this fugue state. She just pushes the button and goes right back up to the top, and you hear the screaming death of all the other kids, and you're like, didn't really necessarily think it would go like that. That was wow. That was the shocker for me, because everything else up until you get to the werewolf part, which also you was kind of like,
Charlie, you're just spoiling everything, man.
well, up until you get to the werewolf part. Well, I mean, this is a movie from 15 years ago. I don't think I'm spoiling too terribly much. But regardless, yeah, there were without a doubt a couple of big shocker surprises in this one.
Yeah,
but yeah, that really snagged me.
I like the part with the old man and how they tied everything together, which was really, really cool. So I really think it was really well done, very fun. And to your point, Donnie, feels timeless because there wasn't technology in this movie. There was really nothing to, I mean, there was a cell phone at one point, but and a little bit of sidebars around the way. And yeah, some surprises that were fun. One thing was I thought something was going to happen and something else happened. So I'm like many times in this movie. So I'm like, very cool. Good pivots on those. So, gentlemen, before we wrap this up, what would you give this for 10 out of 10 jack-o'-lanterns?
Ooh, can I share a fun little factoid?
Sure.
So the reason that I had this movie on my watch list this year is I was actually under the impression that a sequel had just come out. Because years ago, the director had talked about wanting to do a follow-up, and I just didn't realize that I think there was a Shout Factory like re-release, like a reprint, like a special edition. And I was like, oh, it's got to be the sequel. They must have just kept calling it Trick or Treat, and it wasn't. So I looked into it, and there was a sequel announced, it just never got made. So in 2009, Michael Dougherty, the director, he shared that they were working on it. He had written a script, and he had since gone on to do like Godzilla stuff in between now and then, right? He did Godzilla, King of Kong, and all that stuff. But last year he came out with an update for fans, and he said, quote, "I'm intrigued by the idea of doing a sequel, and it's completely up to Legendary Pictures. It's been a few years since we initially talked about it, and there's been a regime change since, but I'd always like to go back to it. They still have the property, and they love it, and there's a long line of merchandise and continuing line of comic books on the film and other things like that." He says, "The moment they say they're interested and ready to go, if the stars align, I'll be there. But at the same time, there's something to be said about not sequelizing it. In a business that is obsessed with franchising and spin-offs and prequels and sequels, maybe there's something to be said about just leaving this one alone."
Like Back to the Future. Robert Zemeckis has said, "Over my dead body." Now that means, of course, that that's exactly what will happen someday, is that you'll get a reboot of Back to the Future in 2055 or something. But yeah, that's funny that you should mention it, because yeah, that's instantly where my head goes to, is that he's one who'd said, nope, no way, no how. We did our thing. We did our 3 films. It was a moment in time, and it's done.
So I was gonna ask you guys if you guys, because I would like to see a sequel, because I think the story is good, but in a different way. Is I would basically like to see a reimagining or a reboot. Like, get rid of the original cast, don't bring them back for returning characters. Like, just make another Trick or Treat. Don't even call it Trick or Treat 2. Just Trick or Treat, 2022 or whatever, and just tell the same story. Just do it differently.
To do it with perhaps a little bit of a different take, different director. I mean, I could sit through, and again, this film didn't fire my imagination to points beyond, but I would sit through another one, because again, it's not like I could be shocked by the same story again unless I had some kind of traumatic brain injury, which might happen, because you never know. That I could be like, wow, But
well, Charlie, you took off your costume early, so at this point, you broke the rules. So be prepared.
Right. Well, I'm sorry with that obviously very high-end outfit that you're wearing. I see how you can sit on your drum head and pass judgment over me. So, okay.
But I was going to say, to your point, I think this opens a door for just the same through line with and I don't even know what the main characters or the monster, whatever we call him.
Sam.
Does he have a name? Sam. So Sam can be that guide through another line of stories. So that works very well. And you just tell more stories.
Keep pulling classic, horror things out, and just you follow the same rules, right? You do the same rules, but you just do it with different stories, different characters. And I think it'd be great. I'd like to see a sequel. But back to your point, I'd probably give it 8 out of 10 jack-o'-lanterns. So I think it's classic. I mean, it's really, really good. It's not over the top. It's not amazing. There's definitely like horror movies that I think are much better than that. But again, like I said, Hocus Pocus for adults, Monster Squad, like it's just kind of classic in the sense that I think you can watch this movie 50 years from now, and it'll still be as entertaining as it was in 2007.
Right, because and again, the lack of topicality is probably what makes it happen. It's
mostly practical effects too.
Yeah, because it's not like, oh, it's an internet killer, and people are going to be like, the internet is a chip that's in my eyeball. I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, that's what it'll be.
Going to pizza.com to order pizza.
It's just great to
always be my favorite pizza.
It's so good to set the Halloween mood. Like, this is such a great kickoff point for anybody's October Halloween movies. Like, just to get in the spirit of Halloween, this is a great pick for that.
Yeah, and you said Legendary. I believe Warner Brothers owns Legendary. It's one of their, I think it's one of their brands of films or production houses. So HBO Max wants content. Perfect thing for them to do.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
I can also see this being a series.
Yeah. It could work too.
I will, and again, not being absolutely overwhelmed, like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. I'm going to put it right up there in that upper tier as well. I would probably go with like a 7 or a 7.5, just for those two twists of the little girl leaving the other kids to die, and then the damn werewolves. That was like, oh, there's Anna Paquin. What's Anna? Shouldn't Anna Paquin be the lead, be the lead role in this? But she's just like, what is she doing? She's hanging out, and then just the meat suit thing where they're all tearing their that.
Oh, that was a freaky look. Yeah, that was an interesting one. Yeah.
Oh, it's just a friggin' meat suit. That was. Unfortunately, they didn't go
good costume.
They didn't go too crazy with that, so it wasn't super duper visceral.
Yep.
Yeah.
But holy shit, yeah, that was like. Wow, couldn't have picked that, and then Dylan Baker just getting mowed down on, and him with his, him killing the poor kid from Bad Santa.
Yeah,
that was kind of a bummer.
That was a nice bit of comedy too. I like
always check your
little bit of dark humor. Yep.
Yeah,
I will back you up on the kids part. I've got a co-host of mine who always tells me that he's over like the kids in danger because the kids never get hurt, and this movie definitely flips that trope like upside down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Kids can be jerks.
Yeah. Yep. 7. We'll call it a 7.75 for me. What about you, Todd?
I think I'll agree with the 8. I think it's some parts were better than others, but I mean overall solid film. Acting, directing, some of the plot twists very fun. And they did reveal Sam's face. It's kind of a spoiler. I wasn't expecting that, so that was kind of cool to see that as well.
Right. Crazy stuff. Well, cool. Boy, bringing Shocktober to a real crescendo. So, yes, I think, as I said, Todd, when we get to next year, perhaps we will maybe dip back and look at things that are a little bit more classic. Maybe we'll dissect something that is considered to be a revered classic that, God forbid, maybe you saw it 20 years ago, but you'll watch, Nightmare on Elm Street for fresh, and we'll go through that, something like that. You know what I mean? I think that would be a good way to change
Absolutely.
Up this segment. 12 months from now, we'll talk about it.
Absolutely. Well, with that, Donnie, thank you for being on. This was a lot of fun. Perfect guest to end Shocktober, so thank you for being on. We like your recommendations, so we'll have to check out some of those next year. But tell people where they can find you on the interwebs.
Yeah, you can find me and my band of Misfits over at PSVG. Our website's psvg.blog. You can find us PSVG on Twitter. We've got a Discord. If you have psvg.blog/Discord, that's really where we live. We're there every day. It's a pretty happening Discord, I'd like to think. I think we have a little something for everybody. We've got a board games focused podcast. We're very video game influenced. We got people that love all the different consoles and PCs, but we even do like a lot of technology stuff. Like I've gotten crazy into car detailing, so we talk about that. We've got sports nuts. We talk a lot of sports, and then of course, Decade of Horror is kind of like our little horror corner. And Decade of Horror is a podcast series that I put out last year. We did 10 years, for the last 10 years, from 2010 to 2020, our favorite movies of every year. We ranked them, and then we did a list of the 2010 to 2020 top 15 favorite movies. So we've got, oh boy, it's 12 episodes. I think the 12, 14, 15 hours of horror movie flavored content. Wow. And then this past year for our podcast, for our Patreon supporters, something we always do is we'll get that band together. So it's me and 2 of my other co-hosts. And we talk about our favorite movies of this past year, what we're planning on watching, just big horror love fest. And we do that every year. So if you're really into horror movies and you're looking for like-minded friends, we've got a little space for that.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Good stuff.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Nice.
Follow Donnie. Check out the team. They're awesome. We've had some of the team members on. We'll probably have some more on as well. So thanks, Donnie, for being on.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Cap approves. Good deal. All right. Well, with that, we're going to wrap it on up. Friends, thank you as always for joining us. I'm going to tell you as always that sharing is caring, and to keep on capping.
Be the hero, not the villain.
In a truck.
Trick or treat, smell my feet.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow @SecretFriendsU on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.